What would happen if one day you walked into the office, thinking it was just an ordinary morning, but a few hours later, you walked out with a cardboard box that held your entire career? I've sat in that exact situation. An email from HR, a short meeting, and then, "We have to let you go." The world seemed to collapse. Years of studying, trying, building an image, suddenly vanished in just a few minutes. But this isn't just my story. Think about Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, fired by his own company at age 30. He once said, "Getting fired from Apple was the worst thing and also the best thing that ever happened to me." That fall opened the door to Pixar, and eventually to an even greater return to Apple. You see, sometimes the free falls in our careers aren't here to destroy us, they're here to set us free. But in that moment, all you feel is fear. Have you ever been in that situation? Feeling like losing your job is the same as losing your self-worth. You ask yourself, if the job is gone, who am I? Stay until the end of this video, because what you're calling a disaster might actually be the gift that changes your entire life. We're living through an unstable time. In the US, just in the past few years, millions have faced layoffs, from big tech corporations to mid-sized and small companies. AI, automation, and an unpredictable economy make many people feel their career future isn't secure anymore. But this loss isn't simply about losing income. It touches a deeper pain, the loss of identity. In modern society, when you meet someone for the first time, the first question is often, "What do you do?" Work becomes the label that defines a person. And when that label is peeled off, many fall into emptiness. If I'm not an engineer, not a manager, not a doctor, then who am I? The result is a wave of anxiety, stress, and even depression. Research from the American Psychological Association shows that job loss can double the risk of mental health issues. Not only that, it affects relationships. Couples strained by finances, friends drifting apart because of shame, and a blanket of loneliness. The paradox is, sometimes precisely in the moment of losing everything, we're given the chance to ask the most important question: what kind of life do I really want to live? You might be sitting there feeling like everything is over, but what I want you to hear today is this: losing a job is not losing yourself. In fact, this might be the door opening to the next chapter, where you find true meaning, not just a job title to answer when someone asks, "What do you do?" When I had just lost my job, the world around me suddenly felt unfamiliar. I remember the first night after that fateful meeting. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, and the only question echoing in my head was, how am I going to live now? Sleep became a luxury. I tossed and turned until 3 a.m., heart racing, mind full of worst-case scenarios, unpaid bills, the mortgage, and the worried look in my family's eyes. The next day, I opened LinkedIn. Instead of feeling connected, I fell into a spiral of comparison. Pictures of friends and colleagues announcing promotions, new jobs, big achievements, felt like invisible cuts to my self-esteem. I asked myself, why are they moving forward while I'm falling behind? In this society, we're often programmed to believe our self-worth is tied tightly to our work. I used to think, if I lose my job title, I also lose my value as a human. But science shows the opposite. According to a study by the APA, American Psychological Association, losing a job causes a psychological crisis not only because of income, but because it breaks an identity framework, one built around a profession. When that frame collapses, people easily fall into feelings of uselessness and invisibility. In other words, the real pain isn't in losing a paycheck, but in losing the answer to the question, who am I? That sense of loss isn't only in your head, it spreads into every area of life. Mental, stress, anxiety, insomnia, feeling like a failure. Physical, elevated cortisol, leading to fatigue and lowered immunity. relationships, snapping at loved ones, feeling ashamed around friends. I remember a moment when my child asked, "Dad, why don't you go to work these days?" My throat tightened. I didn't know how to answer. During that time, social media felt like a magnifying mirror. Others showed off successes while I sat in silence, feeling abandoned by the world. But the truth is, social media is a curated picture where people show their best moments, not the whole truth. A 2018 study from the University of Pennsylvania shows that excessive social media use increases depression and anxiety, especially in people going through personal crises. I realized the pain didn't come from losing my job, but from the false belief, my value equals my job. If I kept clinging to that belief, I'd stay stuck in a pit of inferiority. The truth is, a person's real value lies in what they bring to the world: kindness, the ability to love, perseverance, creativity. A job title is just a jacket. The person inside is what matters. I want you to try something small right now. Write down one negative belief you're carrying. For example, if I'm unemployed, I'm worthless. Then ask yourself, is this completely true? Are you truly worthless? Or do you still have love, skills, patience, the ability to learn? Just by starting to challenge false beliefs, you're planting a new seed for change. I remember clearly the day my life began to turn. That day, I sat in a familiar cafe, laptop open but the screen blank. I couldn't write a single line from my new resume. It felt like every word was heavy, like I was trying to tell a story I no longer believed. Suddenly, an old friend walked in. We had been co-workers, but later he took a different path, starting a business in a completely new field. When I told him about my situation, he smiled and said, "You think losing your job is a period? Maybe it's just a semicolon. What if the next part is where it actually gets interesting?" That sentence was like a beam of light through the dark. I had been used to seeing job loss as a full stop. But what if, just maybe, it was really the beginning of something else? That night, I sat down, opened a blank page, and wrote this question. What if this isn't the end, but the beginning? Just changing the question changed everything. Instead of seeing myself as a failure, I began to think, maybe this is the chance to do what I never dared to try before. Science proves this too. A Harvard Business School study, 2019, shows that people who see failure as a teacher have twice the resilience and success compared to those who see failure as a full stop. In other words, what's decisive isn't the event, but how we tell the story of that event. I began to look back. What did losing my job teach me? It taught me that stability is never truly stable. It forced me to face my deepest fears. Fear of being useless. Fear of not being good enough. It gave me the chance to ask the question I'd avoided for years. What kind of life do I really want to live? Suddenly, this setback was no longer just an enemy, but a teacher. Strict, uncomfortable, but honest. Think of J.K. Rowling. Before Harry Potter was published, she was a single mother on welfare, unemployed and depressed. In that dark time, she began writing the world of Hogwarts. If Rowling hadn't been unemployed then, perhaps the world would never have known Harry Potter. This shows that failure doesn't always destroy our dreams. Sometimes it's the very soil that nurtures them. The turning point didn't come from landing a new job right away. It came from a shift in perspective. When I paused and asked, if I weren't afraid, what would I choose? That's when a new door opened. You might be in the middle of a career storm. You might not see blue skies yet. But remember, no storm lasts forever. And sometimes, that storm clears away what no longer serves you, leaving space for new seeds to sprout. I want you to try this exercise. Take a sheet of paper and write at the top, if I weren't afraid, what would I choose? Write down 3 things you've always wanted to do but never dared, because you feared failure, instability, or others' opinions. Look at that list And choose one small thing you can start this week. You'll be surprised to see that fear is just a wall in your mind, and when you step through it, the world is much bigger than you thought. When I began accepting that losing my job wasn't a full stop, a new journey opened. But don't think everything changed overnight. In reality, rebuilding is like replanting a garden after a storm. First, you clear the debris. Then, you can sow seeds. I started with very small things. Every morning, I forced myself to get up early, walk around the neighborhood, to reconnect with the feeling of starting a new day. I bought a notebook and wrote down the skills I had, even the small ones. Presenting, writing, connecting, and even listening. After many weeks, I realized my value didn't lie in a job title, but in the mosaic of experiences and traits. A jacket can be taken away, but the person inside remains. From there, I rewrote my resume, but this time not just to get a job, rather as a way to retell the journey I had walked and the value I could bring anywhere. Instead of jumping straight into a full-time job search, I began to experiment. Freelancing on a few small projects, taking an online course in a field I had been curious about, but never dared to try. Writing blogs to share experiences as a way to both practice skills and connect with the community. At first, the results weren't big. The income was small. The feeling was shaky. But I realized that what mattered wasn't the money in that moment, but the feeling that I was moving forward. Research from the HeartMath Institute shows that people who cultivate positive emotions, like gratitude, hope, and love, recover faster after crises. Their bodies release less cortisol, their heart rhythms stabilize, and their brains function more creatively. In other words, when you choose to see failure as a lesson, your body and brain literally reorganize to help you become stronger. One evening, I looked at my journal, where I had recorded each day of unemployment. I saw the change clearly, from the early pages full of anxiety and self-doubt, to later pages gradually showing lines like, "I learned a new skill today. I completed this small project. I felt useful helping friends edit their resumes. I realized my value had never disappeared. It only changed its form of expression. And most importantly, failure does not define me. How I rise defines me." Losing a job is like winter. Cold, trees stripped bare, life seemingly gone. But if you're patient, you'll see spring arrive. Trees bud again, flowers bloom, and the once empty ground grows full of life. Careers are the same. What you think is the end is actually just a temporary winter preparing for your new spring. The most important things I learned on this journey are: value doesn't lie in a title. A job title can be lost, but skills, experience, and inner qualities are your true assets. Small steps matter more than big ones. One article, one new skill, one conversation, all add up to change. Failure equals an opportunity to rebuild. Without failure, you'd never ask, "What kind of life do I really want to live?" I want you to try this right now. Write down 3 lessons you took from a past failure. After each lesson, add, "How did it make me stronger?" For example, I lost my job. It taught me I'm not defined by a job title. I once failed in business. It made me learn risk management. I was once rejected. It helped me build patience. You'll see that even the darkest failures plant seeds of strength in you. We've just walked through 3 stages of the story. The shock and struggle. The shock and disorientation after a career collapse. The turning point. The shift in perspective. Realizing failure can be a teacher. The rebuild and growth. The rebuilding journey. Rediscovering true value. And starting to sow seeds for a new future. But the question is, how can you, the one watching this video, not only hear the story, but also apply it to your own life? Let's practice 2 simple but highly effective methods. Method 1. Journaling. Write to heal and redefine. When you lose a job or go through a major shock, your mind often fills with negative beliefs. I'm useless. I failed. I'm not good enough. If you let them linger, they're like toxic seeds that wither your soul. Journaling is a scientific way to identify and change those beliefs. Here's how to practice. Each night, write down 1-2 negative beliefs you hear in your head. For example, if I don't have a job, I have no value. Right below, counter it with a new belief. For example, my value doesn't lie in a title. I still have skills, love, and patience. Finally, write a real-life proof for the new belief. For example, I once helped a colleague through a tough project. I can bring value. Research from the University of Texas at Austin shows that expressive writing helps reduce stress, improves mental health, and increases resilience after crises. Try maintaining this habit for 21 days. You'll be surprised to feel lighter and more confident. Method 2. Visualization. Envision the new you. One reason we get stuck after failure is that our minds cling to the old image. I'm unemployed. I've lost everything. Visualization, positive imagery, helps you create a new mental map. Here's how to practice. Each morning, spend 5 minutes sitting quietly with your eyes closed. Envision yourself 1 year from now, how you're living, what work you do, and most importantly, how you feel. Focus on emotions, peace, confidence, excitement. After you open your eyes, write down one small action you can take today to move closer to that image. Science has proven this. According to research from the Cleveland Clinic, the brain doesn't clearly distinguish between imagining and real experience. When you visualize yourself succeeding, your brain activates the same neural regions as when you actually succeed, increasing the likelihood you'll act in that direction. What matters isn't doing a lot immediately, but starting with small steps. 1 journal page, 5 minutes of visualization, 1 concrete action. Remember, you can't rebuild your entire life overnight, but you can rebuild it 1 brick, 1 seed, 1 breath at a time. Looking back, I realized the day I lost my job wasn't the darkest day of my life. In fact, it was the day life opened a new path for me, a path I never dared to walk before. Of course, in that moment, you won't see the light. You only see darkness, doors slamming shut, and a sense of losing direction. But then, with time, you realize the darkness isn't there to destroy you. It's there to guide you toward a light you never imagined. I like to think of failure as a storm. The storm hits and sweeps away what seemed most solid. Old houses, flimsy fences, everything collapses. You stand amid the wreckage, hurting and confused. But then, as the sky clears, you realize the storm also cleared out what no longer serves you. On that open ground, you can plant any seed. You can rebuild, but this time with a stronger foundation, clearer desires, and a more resilient heart. You are not defined by the job you lost. You are not defined by failure. You are defined by how you take your next step. Life doesn't ask how many times you've fallen. Life only asks, can you get back up? And I believe your answer will be, yes, I get up, and I keep going, stronger than ever. If you're going through a hard season, losing a job, changing careers, or any kind of shock, remember you're not alone. There are millions out there walking this same path. I invite you to share your story in the comments. Write it not just for others to read, but so you can see how far you've come. And who knows, your story might be the inspiration that helps someone else out there survive their darkest day. As we end this video, I want to leave you with an image. Imagine you're holding a seed in your hand. It's small, seemingly insignificant, but if you plant it in new soil and care for it with belief and patience, one day it will become a great tree. Losing a job isn't a full stop. It's the storm clearing the way for you to sow your own seeds again. And you? Yes, you are the one who will decide which seeds will be sown.